Chapter 19, Across the Big Water. As I told you, it was in the summer of my 20th year, 1883, that I performed the ceremony of the elk. That fall, they say, the last of the bison herds was slaughtered by the Wazicus. I can remember when the bison were so many that they could not be counted, but more and more Wazicus came to kill them until there were only heaps of bones scattered where they used to be. The Wazicus did not kill them to eat. They killed them for the metal that makes them crazy, and they took only the hides to sell. Sometimes they didn't even take the hides, only the tongues, and I have heard that fireboats came down the Missouri loaded with dried bison tongues. You can see that the men who did this were crazy. Sometimes they did not even take the tongues, they just killed, and killed because they liked to do that. When we hunted bison, we killed only what we needed, and when there was nothing left but heaps of bones, the Wazicus came and gathered up even the bones and sold them. All our people now were settling down in square gray houses, scattered here and there across this hungry land, and around them the Wazicus had drawn a line to keep them in. The nation's hoop was broken, and there was no center any longer for the flowering tree. The people were in despair. They seemed heavy to me, heavy and dark. So heavy that it seemed they could not be lifted, so dark that they could not be made to see anymore. Hunger was among us often now, for much of what the Great Father in Washington sent us must have been stolen by Wazicus who were crazy to get money. There were many lies, but we could not eat them. The forked tongue made promises. I kept on curing the sick for 3 years more, and many came to me and were made over. But when I thought of my great vision, which was to save the nation's hoop and make the holy tree to bloom in the center of it, I felt like crying. For the sacred hoop was broken and scattered. The life of the people was in the hoop, and what are many little lives if the life of those lives be gone? But late in my 23rd summer, 1886, it seemed that there was a little hope. There came to us some Wazicus who wanted a band of Oglalas for a big show that the other Pahushka, Buffalo Bill, had. They told us this show would go across the big water to strange lands, and I thought I should go, because I might learn some of the secrets of the Wazichu that would help my people somehow. In my great vision, when I stood at the center of the world, the two men from the east had brought me the daybreak star herb, and they had told me to drop it on the earth. And where it touched the ground, it took root and bloomed forayed. It was the herb of understanding. Also, where the red man of my vision changed into a bison that rolled, the same herb grew and bloomed when the bison had vanished. And after that, the people in my vision found the good red road again. Maybe, if I could see the great world of the Wazichu, I could understand how to bring the sacred hoop together and make the tree to bloom again at the center of it. I looked back on the past and recalled my people's old ways, but they were not living that way anymore. They were traveling the black road, everybody for himself, and with little rules of his own. As in my vision, I was in despair, and I even thought that if the Wazichus had a better way, then maybe my people should live that way. I know now that this was foolish, but I was young and in despair. My relatives told me I should stay home and go on curing people, but I wouldn't listen to them. The show people sent wagons from Rushville on the Iron Road to get us, and we were about 100 men and women. Many of our people followed us halfway to the Iron Road, and there we camped and ate together. Afterward, we left our people crying there, for we were going very far across the big water. That evening, where the big wagons were waiting for us on the Iron Road, we had a dance. Then we got into the wagons. When we started, it was dark, and thinking of my home and my people made me very sad. I wanted to get off and run back, but we went roaring all night long, and in the morning, we ate at Long Pine. Then we started again and went roaring all day, and came to a very big town in the evening. Then we roared all night long again, and came to a much bigger town. There we stayed all day and all night, and right there, I could compare my people's ways with Wazichu's ways, and this made me sadder than before. I wished and wished that I had not gone away from home. Then we went roaring again, and after a while, we came to a still bigger town, a very big town, New York. We walked through this town to the place where the show was, Madison Square Garden. Some Pawnees and Omahas were there, and when they saw us, they made war cries and charged, cooing us. They were doing this for fun and because they felt glad to see us. I was surprised at the big houses and so many people, and there were bright lights at night so that you could not see the stars, and some of these lights, I heard, were made with the power of thunder. We stayed there and made shows for many, many Wazi-Chews all that winter. I liked the part of the show we made, but not the part the Wazi-Chews made. After a while, I got used to being there, but I was like a man who had never had a vision. I felt dead, and my people seemed lost, and I thought I might never find them again. I did not see anything to help my people. I could see that the Wazi-Chews didn't care for each other the way our people did before the nation's hoop was broken. They would take everything from each other if they could. And so there were some who had more of everything than they could use, while crowds of people had nothing at all, and maybe were starving. They had forgotten that the earth was their mother. This could not be better than the old ways of my people. There was a prisoner house on an island where the big water came up to the town, and we saw that one day. Men pointed guns at the prisoners and made them move around like animals in a cage. This made me feel very sad, because my people, too, were penned up in islands. And maybe that was the way the Wazi-Chews were going to treat them. In the spring it got warmer, but the Wazi-Chews had even the grass penned up. We heard then that we were going to be crossing the big water to strange lands. Some of our people went home and wanted me to go with them, but I had not seen anything good for my people yet. Maybe across the big water there was something to see. So I didn't go home, although I was sick and in despair. They put us all on a very big fireboat, so big that when I first saw, I could hardly believe it. And when it sent forth a voice, I was frightened. There were other big fireboats sending voices, and little ones too. After a while, I could see nothing but water, 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 and we didn't seem to be going anywhere, just up and down. But we were told that we were going fast. If we were, I thought that we must drop off where the water ended, or maybe we might have to stop where the sky came down to the water. There was nothing but mist where the big town used to be, and nothing but water all around. We were all in despair now, and many were feeling so sick that they began to sing their death songs. When evening came, a big wind was roaring and the water thundered. We had things that were meant to be hung up while we slept in them. This I learned afterward. We did not know what to do with these, so we spread them out on the floor and lay down on them. The floor tipped in every direction, and this got worse and worse, so that we rolled from one side to the other and couldn't sleep. We were frightened, and now we were all very sick too. At first the Wazi-Chews laughed at us, but very soon we could see that they were frightened too, because they were running around and they were very much excited. Our women were crying, and even some of the men cried because it was terrible, and they could do nothing. After a while, the Wazi-Chews came and gave us things to tie around us so that we could float. I did not put the one on they gave me. I didn't want to float. Instead, I dressed for death, putting on my best clothes that I wore in the show, and then I sang my death song. Others dressed for death too, and sang, because if it was the end of our lives and we could do nothing, we wanted to die brave. We couldn't fight this that was going to kill us, but we could die so that our spirit relatives would not be ashamed of us. It was harder for us because we were all so sick. Everything we had eaten came right up, and then it kept on trying to come up when there was nothing there. We did not sleep at all, and in the morning, the water looked like mountains, but the wind was not strong. Some of the bison and elk that we had with us for the show died that day, and the Wazi-Chews threw them in the water. When I saw the poor bison thrown over, I felt like crying because I thought right there they were throwing part of the power of my people away. After we had been on the fireboat a long while, we could see many houses and then many other fireboats tied close together along the bank. We thought now we could get off very soon, but we could not. There was a little fireboat that had come through the gate of waters, and it stopped beside us, and the people on it looked at everything on our fireboat before we could get off. We went very slowly, nearly all day, I think, and after a while we came to where there were many, many, many houses close together, and more fireboats than could be counted. These houses were different from what we had seen before. The Wazichus kept us on the fireboat all night, and then they unloaded us and took us to a place where the show was going to be. The name of this very big town was London. We were on land now, but we were still very dizzy, as though we were still on the water, and at first it was hard to walk. We stayed in this place 6 moons, and many, many people came to see the show. One day, we were told that Majesty was coming. I did not know what that was at first, but I learned afterward. It was the Grandmother England, Queen Victoria, who owned Grandmother's land where we lived a while after the Wazichus murdered Crazy Horse. She came to the show in a big shining wagon, and there were soldiers on both sides of her, and many other shining wagons came too. That day other people could not come to the show, just Grandmother England and some people who came with her. Sometimes we had to shoot in the show, but this time we did not shoot at all. We danced and sang, and I was one of the singers chosen to do this for the grandmother because I was young and limber then and could dance many ways. We stood right in front of Grandmother England. She was little but fat, and we liked her because she was good to us. After we danced, she spoke to us. She said something like this: "I am 67 years old. All over the world I have seen all kinds of people, but today I have seen the best-looking people I know. If you belong to me, I would not let them take you around in a show like this." She said other good things too, and then she said we must come see her because she had come to see us. She shook hands with all of us. Her hand was very little and soft. We gave a big cheer for her, and then the shining wagons came in, and she got into one of them, and they all went away. In about a half moon after that, we went to see the grandmother. They put us in some of the shiny wagons and took us to a very beautiful place where there was a very big house with sharp pointed towers on it. There were many seats built high in a circle, and these were just full of Wazichus, who were all pounding their heels and yelling, "Jubilee! Jubilee! Jubilee!" I never heard what this meant. They put us together in a certain place at the bottom of the seats. First, there appeared a beautiful black wagon with 2 black horses, and it went all around the show place. I heard that the grandmother's grandson, a little boy, was in that wagon. Next came a beautiful black wagon with 4 gray horses. On each of the 2 right-hand horses there was a rider, and a man walked, holding the front left-hand horse. I heard that some of the grandmother's relatives were in this wagon. Next came 8 buckskin horses, 2 by 2, pulling a shining black wagon. There was a rider on each right-hand horse, and a man walked, holding the front left-hand horse. There were soldiers with bayonets facing outward all around this wagon. Now all the people in the seats were roaring and yelling, "Jubilee!" and "Victoria!" Then we saw Grandmother England again. She was sitting in the back of the wagon, and 2 women sat in the front, facing her. Her dress was all shining, and her hat was all shining, and her wagon was all shining, and so were the horses. She looked like a fire coming. Afterward, I heard that there was yellow and white metal all over the horses and the wagon. When she came to where we were, her wagon stopped, and she stood up. Then all those people stood up and roared and bowed to her, but she bowed to us. We sent up a great cry, and our women made the tremolo. The people in the crowd were so excited that we heard some of them got sick and fell over. Then when it was quiet, we sang a song to the grandmother. That was a very happy time. We liked Grandmother England because we could see that she was a fine woman and she was good to us. Maybe if she had been our grandmother, it would have been better for our people.